Have you ever met a free captive? That soul that has freedom within its grasp, and God calling them forward, but instead they're constantly in search of their next captor. You know, the one sitting in the sand with an oasis well within their eyesight, daring them to move. The one who prays for the sun, but the day finally bursts forth, they run for the shadows, complaining of the heat. The one who asks for a fresh wind to blow, and when it finally does and it begins to renew, they reject the very new that they prayed the wind would breathe in. They seek a breeze of change to cleanse into men, but when the winds shift, they retreat. They're always afraid to truly transcend. You may know who I'm talking about. A piece of them may even lie deep within. But look deeper still. If you're willing to linger, you may catch a reflection in the mirror, deep within your eyes, a glimmer of hope that has yet to die. Hesitation seems to be nearby. It's like an anchor's rope, but now is your moment, the choice to be bold, to break from the cycle, to break free from the old. The choice is yours. It always has been. It's time to stand up. It's time to move forward. There is a call to go. There's an oasis I see that's daring us to move. There's a promise to keep that's telling us to go. There's a freedom that's calling us forth, and it's well within our grasp. What are you waiting for? What are you living for? What are you dying for? The sun is bursting forth, and if you would see it as the blessing that it is, it would warm you to your very soul. That wind that you pray for will pray no more. There's a freshness in this breath that will cleanse your very spirit if you'll cling to hope's call. In a world of shifting sands and uncertain skies, this is our time to step ahead. Our hearts open and our spirits wise. As challenges arise, they may push us to our very core. Yet undeterred, we march on. We're eager to learn, eager to change, and to even grow more. With each stride, the past fades away. It's finally left behind, gone for good. There is no retracing the steps that we find. The future beckons, not just breaking chains, but embracing a lasting freedom. We decide to straighten our spines. We look ahead and take that long first step forward, forward, forward. Our purpose clear, our minds are focused on what's meant to be. There is no going back. There's a promise in that promised land that's not simply external but deeply eternal. There's a freedom that my God paid for with the price, and I intend to live in it. There is life and life abundant, and if I've settled for any less, then I've been lied to. There's a hope for this life and the next, and I plan on walking in it. I plan on striving forward with every breath that my lungs can handle. I will bask in the warmth of the sun. I will drink from the waters of the oasis. I will be renewed in the fresh wind of the Spirit. I will stride in freedom, in hope, and in joy as I give glory to Yahweh all of my days. So breathe that in. That's the promise. Walk in it.
Let's go. Let's strive forward. I love that. We're gonna bask in the warmth of the sun. We're gonna drink from the waters of the oasis. Anybody else? We want to drink from the waters. I want to drink from a water of oasis. What's that even mean? What's that even mean? We're walking in desert land. There's an oasis. We go drink from that water. Man, that's what this series is about. We're about striding forward. We're about walking forward. And I believe right here, we've been talking about this. We're trying to get this idea of shedding any type of captive mindset and walking into freedom, walking into the places and spaces of freedom, of purpose, of hope, of joy for our life, that God has promised us a life and life abundant. Jesus said, I have a life for you and life abundant. Life for you and life abundant. And that's what this is about. And so what does it look like for you to strive forward into those things? We are living in some of the greatest days. We're living in America in 2023. Of all the promises that you have, right? We have looked at the Israelite story of them walking from bondage in Egypt and walking into the desert, but walking into freedom, from bondage to freedom. We've been looking at all of these things. and talking about really how what they had was this captive mindset. But what would it look like for you, right? They were on their way to the promise. They were on the way to the promise. And we're talking about, hey, come on, see what God is doing. See what he's doing in the midst of what you have on the way to the promise. See what he's doing. But us, we're living in the promise. You're living in the midst of the promise. You're living in the midst of the promise. You're living in the midst of the promise. You're living in America in 2023. What kind of promise are you living in? And are you walking in it? Are you claiming it? Are you talking like you're living in freedom? Are you talking like that? And we talked about people who believe that they're living in freedom, people that believe that they're living in a winning world, in a winning mindset, in a winning day. People who believe that, they do something different, right? This is what we've been talking about. They stride. They're able to, walk it out, now 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 walk it out. They're able to do that. It's different. It's different than somebody who thinks they're losing. If somebody believes they're losing, you see they either sulk. We talk about that, right? We don't want to sulk anymore. We buried Eeyore. We gave him kisses on the way out the door. We sang beautiful lullabies to him. We sent him down the river. Right? And we don't want to strive endlessly. We did the picture of the treadmill. We're striving. And I gotta go. Because they don't have a winning mindset. But people who have a winning mindset believe that they can stride. And striding forward, we define it like this. Striding forward is walking or running with a purpose in mind and a pace to your step. We're not sulking. We're not striving. Striving being a busybody running around with no timeline in mind or finish line in sight. And I believe that God isn't asking you to strive all ragged and ridiculous into your purpose. He's not asking you to strive all ragged and ridiculous into freedom, into purpose, into hope, into joy. In fact, I believe he wants you to walk or jog as you stride your way into purpose. As you strive forward into purpose. Let me ask you this. I'm going to ask you it this way. Imagine this crazy scenario. Imagine if you had 3 years. 3 years. And you have 3 years to build your legacy. You have 3 years in your entire life. You got 3 years to build your legacy. You have 3 years, whether that's your family lineage, whether that's success on planet Earth, whatever that thing is that you're trying to build, that goal that you have, that thing, the biggest, grandest picture. Imagine taking that and say, you got 3 years to build it. 3 years to build it. What would you do? You won't sleep. Right? I wouldn't sleep. Would you sleep if you had 3 years to do all of it and you want that legacy to have an impact and you want that legacy to last? Let's say you want it to last for 100 years. No. Let's say you want it to last for 1,000. No. Let's say you want your legacy to last for 2,000 years. And you had 3 years to do it. What would we look like as humans? What would you look like? No, it's okay. You can talk back. What would you look like? Huh? Headless chicken. That's what I like. That's why I like when people talk. You look like a headless chicken. You'd be running around like crazy. We'd be taking pills on top of pills on top of pills to keep ourselves up and awake. We'd be walking around like zombies throughout the day. Then put our head down. We're like, oh no, I only got 10 minutes to sleep before I got to get on to my next mission, my next thing. Right? And it's wild to me. Most of us would be killing ourselves, running around, doing whatever it takes, wearing ourselves to the bones to get that done. And yet, if you've read Scripture at all, hopefully you know who I'm referencing. No? Do you know who I'm referencing? It's the Sunday school answer. You got it right. Jesus. Jesus. It's Jesus? Is that the answer? Yeah, yep, that's the answer this time. Good job, everybody. Give it up for yourselves. Give it up yourselves one more time. You'll make me work it today. Okay. That's all right. I like it. I like a challenge. So, Jesus, the person we're walking, did exactly that. It says he did his ministry in 3 years' time. He started around age 30. He died around age 33, right? That he had 3 years of ministry time to go do this huge, big, bold, audacious goal. We would say it's the greatest purpose that mankind's ever had, right? That the humanity's ever seen. Jesus Christ has the greatest purpose. And you know what it says, Jesus? You know, if you grab your Bible, you know, if you can look at Matthew, you can flip over to Mark, you can turn the page, you can read the next verse, the next verse, the next verse, and the next verse. You know what you're going to see? You're going to see Jesus walked. You don't know the verse? Okay. Jesus walked. And in Matthew, he walked. And in Mark, Jesus walked. And then if you turn to Luke and you turn to John, you say, now walk it out, now walk it out, now walk it out, now walk it out. Now, you can read everywhere. You can look in all the chapters, all the verses, and you know what? You're not going to read a verse that says Jesus ran. You're not going to see it. The craziest purpose, the most important mission of all time in humanity, and he doesn't go, he doesn't run, he doesn't sprint, he doesn't jog. It says he walks everywhere he went. He walked. Jesus walked from this town to this town. Jesus walked from this town to this town. One of his best buddies, Lazarus, died, and Jesus was still walking. He's still walking everywhere he goes. And see, because I know some people in the room are going, oh, but Joseph, you don't understand. I have to strive. And I got to strive endlessly a little bit because you don't understand what I'm trying to get. It's good. It's for God, so it's okay. Oh, no, you don't understand. My parents gave me nothing, and I'm trying to leave something to my kids. So I have to strive endlessly. No, you don't understand the type of debt I'm in, so I have to just strive endlessly. No, you don't understand what the thing I'm trying to build, so I have to strive endlessly. Or maybe, I don't know. Maybe you don't understand that Jesus had the most important mission ever, and he still walked. Come on, somebody. Where you at? Walk it out. Walk it out. And my encouragement right off the top is to remember that to walk it out. But there's a reason that Jesus was able to walk. Jesus had a winning mindset. See, people who believe they're going to win have an uncanny ability to walk or to stride while the world around them spins their way into chaos. That's a word. Right? The world could be spinning its way into chaos, but people have a winning mindset. People who believe they're free. People who believe they have purpose. People who are walking towards joy. People who are walking towards, they just have this ability. The world be like freaking out, and they're just like, how's the day? Good day today, huh? Good day. Didn't you see? Oh, you haven't read the news. No. Jesus had a winning mindset. I believe Jesus knew he was going to win. Jesus knew God was going to win. Jesus knew the cause that he had linked himself to. I only do that which I see the Father do. And you know what? I believe Jesus going, I see the Father doing a lot of winning, so I think we're going to be okay. Oh, I'm going to preach to somebody today. If you'll let me. It says he believed that he was able and willing to walk wherever he went. I believe God wants this freedom mindset for you. We talked about the captive mindset and the captive mentality. And I almost went and dove straight into this way. I said, we're just going to talk about pace, how to set a pace, how to walk these things out, how to do this. We're going to do that next week. But before I did, I was like, I think we would have missed something. We would have missed something because we can't just denounce and say we're going to throw away a captive mindset, but not take on a freedom or a winning mindset. Somebody say amen. We can't do that. And you know somebody else that we're tracking within the story of the Israelites. In fact, we've been talking about the Israelites' captive mindset, but what we haven't done is focused a lot of times on Moses' perspective. Moses had a winning mindset. Moses had a freedom mindset. And it's actually what I believe made him so unique. In fact, have you ever asked that question? Have you ever asked yourself, why did God show up? If you know the story, I'm going to tell a little bit of the story today. If you don't know, we'll get there. But if you do know it, have you ever asked that question? Why did God go all the way out to some dude who's been in the desert for 40 years to go get the Israelites who were in Egypt to walk them to freedom? You ever asked that question? What made this dude Moses so unique? What made him so important that God, Yahweh, pretty powerful dude, pretty powerful guy. Somebody's going to cancel me for that later. He's up there preaching, calling God a guy. Oh, pretty powerful, right? But he goes out to the desert to a guy who's sitting there for 40 years, wasting away, watching sheep, and goes, hey, I'm going to use you. What made Moses so unique? Really fast, I want to tell you a couple quick things. At the time of Moses' birth, if you don't know this, at the time of Moses' birth, the Israelites had grown actually too strong as captives in Egypt. In fact, Pharaoh got a little bit worried, intimidated. Yeah, these are all good words. Thank you, guys. Thank you for helping me out. He gets worried. He gets intimidated, and they're growing in numbers. And so he says, you know what? We're got to cap the numbers. So he puts out a decree, and he says, we're going to kill all the firstborn males. We're going to kill all the male, every male baby, not firstborn, every male baby to limit their population. So what do? The Hebrew women, they hid a lot of the babies, so they're trying to hide them. So Moses' mom, Hebrew birth mother, is trying to hide him. And for some reason, I believe Moses, in some way, he must have been like a crier. Maybe he had colic or something, because it came to the point where they said they couldn't hide him any longer. So he's crying or whatever, he's fussy. He's like, we can't hide this baby. So they put him in a basket, and they stick him in the reeds on the Nile River. And then Pharaoh's daughter comes down, and she's doing her little bathing thing in the Nile River, which is probably where they poop too, so it's kind of gross, but, royalty going royalty. And then they do this thing, and she's sitting there, and then they must have heard, I'm thinking, they see the reed. I'm thinking he must have been crying again, because this was Moses, so he's not a good baby. He's a bad baby, terrible baby, It's like Zion. My son Zion, he's the worst. As a baby, he's great now. Well, we kept him, but I didn't stick him in the reeds. So one up on Moses' parents. There you go. That's how you gotta read the Bible, though. By the way, if you want to really have a good time reading the Bible, just compare yourself to him. Be like, I'm so much better than this person. This person whack. God must really love me. He'd be ready to bless me, because these people are horrible, throwing their babies in the river. So he put a baby in the reeds. Pharaoh's daughter came, finds the baby, pulls him out, and decides, I want to keep the baby. Goes against. Listen to this. Oh, this is good stuff. Goes against what Pharaoh's decree said. She recognized him as a Hebrew baby. I'm going to keep him anyway. Why? Because royalty is able to stand up to royalty. Oh, you don't even know what that means yet. Royalty is able to stand up to royalty. Royalty is able to break the rules every once in a while. Okay. Yeah, I am preaching to break rules. Okay, maybe a little. Okay, so she stands up. Moses' sister comes along and says, hey, you didn't just have a baby, but I know a couple Hebrew mothers who had a baby. You're going to need somebody to nurse him and take care of him. You want to do that? And she says, yeah, you'll do that. And then she goes, yeah, as long as you pay us, which that's just good business, by the way. You know what I mean? That's really good business. You have a baby. Anyway, okay, we'll move on. So she takes him in. And so Moses ends up growing up in his own family's house. Scholars believe anywhere from 2 to 4 years. They care for him. They take care of him. They raise him in their home for a couple years. And then they give him back to Pharaoh's daughter. And this is the key. This is such a big deal. Are you ready for this? Exodus 2, verse 10. It says, check this out. When the child grew older, she took him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became, somebody read it. She named him Moses, saying, I drew him out of the water. What you see here is a princess of the land. You see Pharaoh's daughter names Moses and claims Moses. You ain't ready for it. Pharaoh's daughter, royalty, took in a Hebrew, named him, claimed him, and raised him. Oh, you aren't even ready for it. Y'all ain't even ready for it. So Moses ends up growing as Egyptian royalty. He becomes immediately set apart from every other Hebrew, which is currently living where? In captivity. In captivity. What would it look? Ooh. He's living in captivity, but where does Moses grow up? In the palace as a free man. All the other Hebrews are living in captivity and oppressed, but Moses is living as a free man in the palace. And just again, think through this perspective. Firstly, I want to just pause for a second and just encourage you. I believe God wants to do that with you today. If you're living in such captivity, this is what this message is about. What would it look like for you to grow up free? What would it look like for you not just to shed your captivity, not just look at the last couple of weeks like we've talked about and say, oh, I don't want to be captive anymore. So you just shed that somehow. But then you're just standing in the middle. But what would it look like what would it look like if you grew up free? What would it look like if you allowed yourself to go into the promises that God does have for you, into living in the midst of the promise, and start to shift your mindset and start to grow up free, to start to change your mindset from what was to what is, to start to embrace freedom, to start to embrace hope, to start to embrace life and life abundant, to start to embrace joy, to start to walk in, not just to start to walk in it, to start to expect it. Again, just think through the Israelites' perspective. Think through why it had to be Moses. Think through the Israelites' perspective. Think of all the systemic injustice they faced through 400 years of being captives. Think about them. They're on the wrong side of the caste system, generation after generation after generation. All they know is building someone else's empire. All they know is 14 to 16-hour workdays. All they know is 2-3 square meals a day, on time, on schedule, then get back to work. All they know is paying off their debt. All they know is working for somebody else's hand. All they know is feeding somebody else's empire. That's all they know. That's the only clip they know. They do not have the wiring to live in, to breathe in, to walk in freedom. They don't even understand what that would be or look like. And then on the other hand, instead of growing up that way, you have Moses growing up a prince. Moses growing up with a lifestyle of freedom in the palace. What would it look like for you to grow up free? What would it look like for you to be reborn into freedom? What would that mean? What would that give to you? Again, why was Moses chosen in the first place? To help free the captives. You know, I could tell you a couple reasons he wasn't chosen. Number one, it wasn't because he had the highest character in the room. Why? Why wasn't he chosen because of character? What did Moses do? Thank you. What did he do? Say it again. Don't say it loud with your chest. He murdered somebody. Even in Egypt, that was really bad. Even in Egypt, that was really bad. So he murders somebody. And he knew it was bad. So he walks up on the scene. He sees a Hebrew killing another Hebrew. No. He sees an Egyptian killing a Hebrew. He doesn't like killing a Hebrew. What am I saying here? He sees an Egyptian beating a Hebrew. He shows up on a scene. He decides, hey, that's one of my Hebrew people. And so he kills the Egyptian. And then he buries the Egyptian. And he thinks nobody saw it, nobody heard it, nobody saw it. And then somebody snitched on him. And then they come up and tell him, like, he finds out that Pharaoh found out. So then Pharaoh tries to kill him. Do you know the story? Y'all know the story? Somebody said we all watched that. You watched Prince of Egypt? That's funny. That's actually hilarious. I like that. Yeah, we all watched it. Move on, please. Get to the point. Ends up getting back to Pharaoh. Pharaoh tries to kill him. And so then what happened? What did Moses do next? He flees. It wasn't because Moses had the highest character in the room. It's not because Moses was the bravest in the room. Moses didn't stand up at this point in time and say, yeah, I killed him because you're an unjust ruler. I killed him because of the lack of justice that you portray. Yeah, that's why I killed him, and we're going to keep doing it, and I'm going to help rise up a group of these Hebrews, and we're going to come after you until you start treating my people right. That's not what he did. He ran, and he hid in the desert for 40 years. In other words, he had no intent of coming back. Dude wasn't starting anything. He didn't run to go regroup and come back. Nuh-uh. He was like, that was my one attempt, that was my one try, and I'm out. He runs. He literally says, I am now a foreigner in a foreign land. And he was just good with that. That was it. That was done. That's who he was. That's what he had spoken. It also wasn't because, check this one out. It wasn't because he was moved to compassion about the situation the Israelites were in. In fact, God showed up to Moses. Do you remember the story? You watched the movie. So it's the burning bush moment. The burning bush moment happens, and God shows up to Moses within the burning bush. And in Exodus 3, this is what God says. By the way, this is what God says. This is not what Moses said. Rereading through this story the last couple of weeks, I've learned that there are a lot of times we smush God and Moses together. And we put what Moses says as God's words, and we put what God says as Moses' words so often. Just remember, this is God's words. This has nothing to do with Moses. They are two separate entities. Everybody say hallelujah. Exodus 3:7, he says, the Lord said, I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I've heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I am concerned about their suffering. So I have come down to rescue them from the hand of the Egyptians and to bring them up out of the land into a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey. So now, go, I am sending you, Moses, to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. Come on, give it up for that. That's amazing. Isn't that powerful? God's such a good, gracious, amazing, powerful God. And you would think could you imagine if you were sitting in a desert for 40 years, if you were actually praying about your people, if you really cared about your people, if you were sitting there like, God, please help them. God, restore. God, send some type of revival. God, help bring justice to my people. They're being mistreated. I was even willing to kill someone because of it. God, if you would only move, if you'd only do something, that finally, if that was you in the desert and God finally showed up to you and said, okay, let's go. You would grab whatever you had around you. You grab your sword. You go, let's go. God, tell me where. Tell me when. Let's go do this thing. Right? Or if you're like prideful or arrogant, like some people I know, you'd be like, yeah, I knew it was going to be me. Let's go do it. One of those two things, one of those things would move you. Do you know what Moses said? This is Moses' response. This shows, if you've ever been concerned or thought, no, Moses was super passionate about this cause. Oh, really? Moses' response, Exodus 3:11. But Moses said to God, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? And if you go back and read through Exodus 3, the candor and the tone seems to very much come across. Moses wanted to just be left alone. If it was Moses' narrative, God would have said, I'm going to go free them, and you're going to be the person I'm going to use. Come on, let's go. Moses would have been, this is how Moses, I believe, would have translated. No, that's cool, but thanks, though. Where's the sheep at? I lost my sheep. He was shepherding out there. He was watching the flock. Flock. Pronounce the L. That's not what it was. He was moved to compassion. He wasn't moved to compassion about the thing. That wasn't what he was about. It also, check this one. This is a really good one. This one blew my brain this week. It blew my mind. I was actually whoa, I've never read this before. It wasn't because Moses knew God really incredibly well. Where'd Moses grow up? In Egypt, in the palace, from ages probably around age 4 and up. What gods did Moses know about? Who? Egyptian gods. What education system did he go into? Egyptian education. Who did he learn about? All the Egyptian gods. What did he see at power? Egyptian gods. Who did he see rule underneath the guise of power? Ra, a different god. That's the God he knew of. And you might say, oh, no, I don't know about what? Where are you getting that? Then he goes to Midian. By the way, Midianites were not serving Yahweh. They didn't even know. They weren't even 10 Commandments yet. They weren't following that. There was no 10 Commandments to follow. He's 40 years in Egypt, 40 years in the desert. He's 80 years old. And how do you know that? Because God tells Moses, this is when Moses said that, I read that verse earlier, right? Hey, who am I that you're going to send? Do you know what God responds with? Don't worry, I will be with you. Do you know what Moses responds with? Well, who are you? I'm serious. Go read it in Exodus 3. Okay, that's cool. Who are you? What do you mean, who am I? The God of Father Abraham. Yeah, I know, but what do you do or something? He literally he had no clue who Yahweh really was. He didn't even know his name. He said, who am I supposed to tell them is sending me? Oh, Yahweh, tell them Yahweh. Then God gives Moses 3 signs so he and the Israelites will actually believe in him. And also, this is the last one. It wasn't chosen because he was uber talented. God said, I want you to go be a spokesperson for me. And you know what Moses said? But God, do you think you might, if you want me to give speeches to everybody and everyone, but I don't actually have the ability. Moses stuttered. He was the wrong guy. He was not talented. What are we putting together? If you're not, what do we see? Moses wasn't chosen because he was uber talented. Moses wasn't chosen because he had this deep connection to Yahweh. He didn't even know his name yet. Moses wasn't chosen because he had a huge compassionate heart for the Israelites at this point in time. Moses did have something, though, that potentially no other Israelite on earth maybe had at this point in his time. He had a freedom mindset. Go ahead, you can give up for that. That's all right. That's okay. Well, I'm going to teach you how to give feedback. We're going to turn into a church today. Oh, in fact, I could go off on this in so long, and I could tell you guys aren't as intrigued with it as I am, and that's okay. But, I nerd out on this stuff. I have a fun time with it. But that mindset was so strong that, think about this. Moses is being spoken to through a burning bush, and he's still willing to negotiate terms with God himself. And at the very end, after negotiating all of his terms, he still was like, yeah, if you could send somebody else, that'd be cool, though. But have a great day. I hope call me. That was his bookend closing until it says God burned with anger. Oh, man. The freedom mindset mattered so much. And I believe, what is the thing that made Moses unique? It's not the talent. It's not that. What's the thing that's going to make you unique? What's the thing that's going to make you have the ability to stride forward from bondage, from oppression, from wherever you're at, from a captive mindset to freedom? It's going to be this winning mindset. It's going to be about building a winning mindset, and it really, 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 really matters. In fact, it mattered throughout the story of the Israelites. We see it. A couple different examples. We see it when God says he's going to come down from Mount Sinai to meet with the Israelites. He says God is going to come down, and he's going to come down in a billow of smoke, and there's going to be thunder and lightning. And his goal was to come and meet with all of the Israelites. Let that mess up with your theology a little bit. That's okay. Oh, I can't say that. He ain't ready for it yet. God's goal was to come down right away and meet with all of the Israelites. He goes, we're going to talk. We're going to hang out. We're going to meet together, okay? That's what we're going to do. That's God's goal. And the Israelites respond with this. Are you ready? Exodus chapter 20, verse 18. It says, when the people saw the thunder and lightning and heard the trumpet and saw the mountain in smoke, they trembled with fear. They stayed at a distance and said to Moses, speak to us yourself and we will listen, but do not have God speak to us or we will die. You know what I'm just going to cut to it. That's a captive mindset. That's a slave mindset. That's we were Pharaoh was our master, and we were captives, and now we just have a new master. We're captives to a new master, and if we take the wrong step, he's just going to kill us, or he's going to make us, or he's going to tax us, or he's going to make us work. Same mindset, different master. You want to know Moses' response? Oh, you don't? Okay. No, that's all right. We can be done. Do you want to know Moses' response? Yes. Exodus 19. Read the voices. The Israelites, no, we can't go up. Moses' response, Exodus 19. The Lord descended to the top of Mount Sinai and called Moses to the top of the mountain. What's it? So Moses went up. So Moses, like, do you see the difference? You see the difference? Are we catching the difference? Are we seeing what I'm saying? Are we understanding what I'm saying? Do we get what I'm saying? The Israelites are terrified, and they're scared, and they're afraid at every turn. God's going to get he's coming out to get me. Moses, God calls to Moses, and what's he do? Yo, what's up? Why? Because a captive mindset is often afraid of any type of authority. But a freedom mindset goes boldly before the throne. And Moses grew up in Pharaoh's courts his whole life. Moses sat around with high-octane, high-powerful people his whole life. He wasn't afraid of power. He sat in that atmosphere his whole life. Or how about when Pharaoh attacks the Israelites at the Red Sea? Look at Israelites' response, Exodus 14. As Pharaoh approached, the Israelites looked up, and there were the Egyptians marching after them. They were terrified and cried out to the Lord. They said to Moses, was it because there were no graves in Egypt that you brought us to the desert to die? What have you done to us by bringing us out of Egypt? Didn't we say to you in Egypt, leave us alone, let us serve the Egyptians? It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the desert. We've read this the last couple weeks because we've been reading about the captive narrative, the captive mindset. But that's the Israelites' perspective. What do you see Moses do? What do you see Moses say? What do you see Moses take on? You know Moses' response? Exodus 14:13. He says, Moses answered the people, do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. The Egyptians you see today, you will never see again. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. That's a wholly different response. These people screaming, yelling, oh my God, take me back. What's happening? Moses like, just be still, y'all. It's going to be good. We're going to be fine. God's probably got a plan or something. By the way, it's kind of funny because you kind of see Moses come over and have a sidebar conversation. He's like, hey, yo, so I told them to be still, but like, what are we going to do? Like, there is an army coming, so just like, I was just wondering, like, I know you got this, but what do you want to do? And basically God's like, why are you crying out to me? There's an army coming after you. Move, dummy. That's my translation. Pharaoh and his army are coming down to destroy them, though, and you have this dude, Moses, standing still. He's saying, stand still. Don't even worry about it. Why? Even God was like, what are you doing? Why? Because I'm trying to help you see something. This is a prince mindset. Moses has a prince mindset. He has a winning mindset. He has a freedom mindset. Moses grew up in the courts where there was armies trying to attack the Egyptians all the time. And what would happen? Who would come in defense? Who would create a strategy? Who? Who would create a strategy? Where Moses grew up. Go ahead, think. Go ahead, just think a little bit. Who would create the strategy? Moses grew up where? Huh? In the palace. So an army is about to attack Egypt. They have to go strategize. Who? Somebody said it. Kings, Pharaoh, royalty. So what does Moses come to expect after what? Year 20? Year 25, new army shows up, new problem shows up, new issue shows up. Y'all watch all these shows? Y'all watch these Viking shows and stuff? Don't watch them, they're bad. Inappropriate. Totally inappropriate. There's always somebody coming after the kingdom, right? What happens? What do? Strategize. Problem solve. And who makes the decision? The ruler, the kings, the Pharaoh. What does Moses get to the point of? What does he understand if he's a prince, if he's royalty? What'd you say? He'll take care of it. Pharaoh's got it. Pharaoh's got it. We don't have to worry. Pharaoh got it. What's he doing right here? The Israelites have a different perspective. Do you see what I'm saying? Are you understanding? Are we grasping? The Israelites are walking in, going, we've only been mistreated by authority. We've only been mistreated by power because we're not sons. We're not daughters. We're slaves and we're captives. But Moses didn't grow up that way. And so what's his response? Are you kidding me, y'all? We did this all the time in the palace. What are you playing with? This is the idea, like the car breaks down, the tire goes out, the sons are in the back seat. What do? Ain't my Snickers up here. Dad's got it. Yeah, and Dad's like, you can at least come hand me a wrench or something. Get out of the dang car. What you doing? You just gonna sit around your whole life? At least move a little bit. That's the idea. That's what we're seeing here. At least move a little bit. Yeah, I know I got it. I know. I will take care of it. But geez, help me. Bring your staff or something. Dad's got it. Dad's got it is a mentality. What you going to do to him this time? This story in Exodus is full of examples of the Israelites having a captive mindset, but it's also full of examples of Moses having a winning mindset. And I'm going to encourage you to go back and read through it. Read through it through the Israelite perspective, and then go back and read through it through Moses' perspective and understand how many times they have a completely different view of the same thing that's happening. It's perspective. It's what you're looking at. It's your mindset. It's you thinking, woe is me, captive mindset versus Moses going, I grew up in the palace. And that's the question. What would it look like for you to grow up today? What would it look like for you to lay down the captive mindset and then say to God, to say to the things in your life, and to go, I want to grow up into a freedom mindset. I want to grow it. I want to build it. When we talk about moving from captivity to freedom, there is no way Moses would have been able to lead anyone from captivity to freedom if he didn't at some point grow up in or accept a mentality of freedom for himself first. And this is our mission, I believe, in ministry. This is our mission in ministry here at New Life. I believe our mission as people of Yahweh is to first grow in our freedom mindset and actually take what God has given us and adapt it into our lives. And then also to find other people. As we come across other people, we find people and we see people in depression and anxiety and oppression, and we help lead them into freedom, purpose, and joy as well. And I believe right here today that we have a bunch of potential Moseses in the room. You got a bunch of potential Moseses right here. You're a potential Moses right here in the room. Somebody who has every bit of the ability. Listen, Jesus did some things on his cross 2,000 years ago. And when he did, some of the favorite words I love, he said, it is finished. In other words, it was like God has it's done. There's no more limits anymore. There's no more, there's freedom. And there is unattainable purpose. There's unbelievable purpose. And there's unbelievable joy. And I know I keep saying these things time and time again. And I'm repetitive on purpose because I'm like, it's all here. We have the freedom. It's all available to us, but we need some sons and daughters to start to grow up into a freedom mindset and stop. We can't just shed the captive. We got to walk into this freedom mindset, walk into a winning mindset, because that's the truth of the matter is you can win right here, right now. You can win, and you're free to win, and you're free to run, and you're free to walk, and that's that spoken word. You're free. You're free. You're free to enjoy the warmth of the sun. You're free to go drink the waters from the oasis. It's right here. It's right now. It's not for another time. It's for right here, right now. The first thing that's got to shift is this actual perspective that's holding you back, thinking, but it's for everybody else, but it's not for me. Well, I'm just not quite talented enough. Well, neither was Moses. Well, I don't really have the character. Well, neither did Moses. Well, I don't really have da-da-da. Well, neither did Moses. You know the only difference maybe between you and Moses, if you're using language like that, is your mindset. It's your mindset. You might not feel free. You might not feel like you're the leader. You might not feel like you have all the power, all the abilities. Neither did Moses. But what would it look like if you grew up free? What would it look like if, like Moses, like Jesus, you believed you were winning? What would it look like for you to build a winning mindset? If you want to stride forward and keep striding forward, you're going to want to build a winning mindset first. A winning mindset celebrates the process and not just the outcome. A winning mindset doesn't simply endure the grind, but finds a way to enjoy the grind. A winning mindset understands that you're going to have to work really hard to gain success, and just as hard, if not a bit more, to maintain success. And that doesn't bother them because they don't mind working. A winning mindset finds a rhythm that will maintain the success they're searching for. A winning mindset starts with answering the question, do I believe I'm a part of something great? If not, then what are you doing to change it? And if so, then with all humility, start to walk in it. Walk in it. Start to walk in it. Just like anything else that's worthwhile, just like any other muscle, a winning mindset has to be built. It's not inherent. It doesn't just show up. No one was necessarily completely born. Again, even with Moses, the only difference was he grew up in the palace. What is it going to look like for you to start putting yourself in palace situations and start changing the way you look at life? Start changing your perspective on it. I'm literally going to rip through these in about 3 minutes. This is how to build or rebuild your winning mindset. And I want you to answer the question, which of these 4 do you need to work on most? Number 1 is don't rely on your talent. Don't rely on your talent. This is the idea that things that make you successful won't often keep you successful. The talent that got you in the room won't keep you in the room. Character actually really matters. Just like Moses, it wasn't his talent that got them into freedom, and you can't out-talent your way through life. There are 2 primary keys to not relying on your talent. Number 1, be disciplined. And number 2, grow your grit. Being disciplined is a word that's cared less and less about in our culture, but still yields really great results. Discipline is about saying yes to the right things, no to the wrong things, and then sticking to those things. It's all about sticking to those decisions you've already made. And number 2, like it, is grow your grit. Work hard. I just talked about growing grit. I just talked about that. I did a message about 3 weeks ago. You can go watch it. I'm not going to spend any more time on it, but it's passionate perseverance pointed at a worthwhile purpose. So that's number 1. Number 1, don't rely on your talent. Number 2, generate momentum with small steps. Generate momentum with small steps. This means you calculate your steps. This is the question. What are the small markers that you've decided on that are on the way to your large goal? Again, you actually reach your big goals with consistent baby steps. This is all about having multiple finish lines along the way and not moving them. In other words, make small advancements. Make really small advancements. A bad football program, right? A bad football program does not try and turn a program around by immediately and suddenly winning games on the scoreboard. What do? A good coach in a bad football program says we're going to win at practice. We're going to win practices, and we're going to win another practice, and then another practice, and then another practice. Eventually they'll say things like, let's go 1 quarter without throwing an interception. Let's go a quarter without fumbling the ball. And then they actually look at those wins. And if you can stack those wins and allow them to compound over time, you may eventually see the scoreboard change. But before you get to the scoreboard, calculate your steps to success, and then count your steps. Count them. In other words, count them. Count your steps. Count your steps. Award yourself with the steps that you've taken. Stack each and every win, and then count your wins as wins. Recognize your wins as wins. I think one of the best things Moses seemingly did throughout this story is he seemed to count all the wins he kept seeing God do. Right? Moses must have. And there's something the Israelites must not have done. If you watch the parallel, watch the difference that they had. Moses had to have counted each plague in Egypt as a W. He counted the Red Sea being split as a W. He counted the fire by night and a cloud by day as a W. And as long as they were going to keep getting W's, keep stacking wins, then he knew God would get them across the finish line eventually. The most important thing is that they were winning on their way to the promised land, but that is a winning mindset. Do you see the difference? He's taking each W as a win. He's understanding it's a winning mindset. And yet they never crossed the finish line. In fact, Moses never made it to the finish line. He never made it to the promised land. But he held this different perspective. That's a winning mindset. Meanwhile, the Israelites are so focused on the final destination. Some of y'all are so focused on the final destination that is killing you. It's killing you. The fact that they're not there yet, and it kept sending them back into a captive mindset, literally begging to go back to Egypt. I'm going to say it this way. Free captives. You may be a free captive in the room. Let me speak to you today. Free captives can be on the way, headed in the right direction, with the right company, having the right leader, and God directing them all along, and they'll still be convinced that they're losing. Okay. Free captives aren't blinded by what's in front of them, but instead by what they don't have or where they haven't gotten to yet. They're so blinded by the promise, by the finish line, by what hasn't happened, that they're unaware of the blessings all around them. They're blind to the step that is right in front of them. And because of that, they often lose heart each step of the way as they're on the way to the things that most hope for and pray for in life. All right, that's really good. Calculate your steps, count your steps, and then celebrate your steps. That's the last one. Celebrate your steps. You have to celebrate your steps along the way. I'll talk more about this next week. I'm obviously trying to clean this up because we're way past time, right? I said the time word. I'm not supposed to say the time word. Number 3, trust your vision. Number 3, trust your vision. Ask yourself the question, do I super believe in the vision that I have for my life? How deep your vision runs will be how far you're able to go. God was so specific with his vision along the way with Moses. How deep is the vision you have for life? How deep is the vision you have for life? How deep is the vision you have for life? And then I would challenge you, deepen it. However deep you think it is, deepen it. Deepen it. Go deeper. If you can go deeper, you'll go wider. That's always how it works. Get in rooms with people who are on your side. Ask them hard questions. Sit, pray, journal, write, build a vision for your life. We're going to talk more about that process next week. But once you have that vision, trust it. There is no other option anyway. Once you have your vision, trust your vision. You got a vision from God? Trust it. You got a vision written down? Trust it. You have no option other than to trust it. Think about this. Stay optimistic at all odds. You already have close to 8 billion people who either say we can't, we don't want to, or we won't be a part of what you're building. With everything in you, don't be one of those people. Don't be one of those people. Why add to that noise? Why add to that voice? Find yourself some people who will believe in you, who will be a part of it, and move forward with everything and trusting in your vision. Once you have that locked in vision, this is the final one, and you can put up the pad this time because. Number 4 is take action. Just do it, as Nike would say. Eventually, we could do this church thing all the time. You come in, you can sit down, you leave, you go throughout your week. You come in, you sit down, you leave, you go throughout your week. You can even join a small group. These are all great things. You can be a part of some of the things we're going to do here at New Life. By the way, I have some insane, amazing announcements next week about, I told you at the beginning of the series, we are striding forward. And I mean that, y'all. We're striding forward. And we're going with hype. We're going with some excitement in the air. And I really do. I really want to invite you on the journey because it's going to be a really good time. Like, I'm not saying that out of any, I'm just saying that, like, I mean, yeah, you know, there's more people, it's more excitement, it's more joy, it's more fun. But I'm just telling you, we're going to have a really good time, and we're going to do some really special things in the community. We're going to do some really special things in the kingdom. We're going to do some really special things in global causes. And we're going to start laying some of that out in some really special ways next week. We could do all of those things. We could do all of those things. You could keep coming to the Sunday service. You could go to small groups. You could even be a part of the community and meet needs. But if you stay in this captive mindset, you'll just always be a captive. Just be a free captive. And too many of us, I would argue, are free captives. And that's the whole point of this message. That's the whole point of this series, is to go, whoa. Don't be an Israelite. Don't be an Israelite where you're on the way to freedom, complaining, grumbling, and living in captivity. Don't be that. I mean, if you want to be that, have fun, but it seemed like a pretty miserable time. Or you could be like a Moses. And you can not only walk into freedom for your own self, but you can walk into freedom you can help others walk into freedom for themselves. You could be a part of that process. You could actually go lead some people. You could have it for you, and you could lead some people. And that's what this is about. This is about striding forward into these places and spaces. See, I think that when we talk about take action, we could pray about it, We could strategize all over. In fact, I would say as Christians in America, so often I think we have the paralysis of analysis. I just got to pray about it a little more, brother. I got to think about it a little more. I got to pray about it. I got to pray about it. And hear me on it for real. Pray about it. Pray about it. Absolutely go pray about it. Strategize about it. Get the best people you know in the room. Write things down. Scratch it off. Rewrite it. Reset it. Always be willing to adjust, shift a little. But at some point, go. At some point, you have to take that step. At some point, you have to start striding forward. And I believe so much of the scriptures even, we can look through so many stories, and I believe there's so often where God's like, okay, get up and go. Get up and do it. Okay, it's time to take action. And so many times he comes along, men and women in their journeys, they're like, but I'm just a horrible person. You don't know what I've done. It's like all the time I see this God in scripture just like, oh, get up. I get it. Okay, clean yourself off. Great. Yeah, great. And then go. And you're going to get dirty again, and that's okay. Come back. We'll get you fixed up. We'll get you sorted out. I'll heal whatever wounds, and then go, and then go, and then go. And somewhere in society, we've adopted this victim mentality that, well, if I was a victim, then I don't have to do. And I believe God so much right now in this room is going, no, I have freedom for you. I have purpose for you. I have joy for you. I have life for you. I have life and life abundant for you. And you don't have to strive endlessly to get it, and you don't have to sulk in the corner and act like you can't have it. You can stride your way into it. But if you're going to stride your way into it, change this right here. Begin to build a winning mindset. Start to grow up in the palace. We see at the very beginning, Pharaoh's daughter named Moses and claimed him. I believe God has named you and claimed you in the spirit. And the only thing that's waiting for us, if we're not living in that freedom yet, is us saying, okay, God, I'm before you. What is the name that you have for me? How have you claimed me? What do you have for my life? I'm writing this down. I'm going to spend time with you. And then I'm going to get up. I'm going to grow in the palace before you, and I'm going to walk it out. And if we get a bunch of people in Jefferson County that start to learn how to walk it out in the freedom mindset before God, we will see something that you have not yet seen. We'll see something. We'll walk in it. We'll walk in it. And for those who join, we'll see it either way. And for those who don't, even in the midst of the freedom, you'll be stuck in captivity. Don't just shed your captivity. Don't just be angry at your captivity. Embrace the freedom God has for you. God, thank you for today. Thank you for this time. God, I pray that you would be with us. Encourage us, grow us, grow us, grow us. God, I pray that you grow us. I pray that you grow us. I pray that you'd help us come, God, and even just be so eager to learn from you, to learn your ways, to walk in your ways. God, I pray that you put excitement, that you give something to us that's supernatural, that we would go after it, that we would grow in it, that we would walk in it. And I pray for that in Jesus' name. Amen.